Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie. This is going to be my video all about the new version of Thor's hammer during Thor 4 Love and Thunder. We finally have some new scenes that actually explain how the new hammer exists within the movie, because I know there's a big question about where the alternate versions of the hammer are going to come. Full movie videos all year for all the new movies that are coming up in Marvel Phase 4, in all the Marvel Phase 4 Disney Plus series episodes. And speaking of Thor related stuff, the next big Marvel Disney Plus series is Loki. We're going to get episodes of that in a couple weeks. But currently Thor Love and Thunder is still filming, so you've all probably seen the videos and the pictures from the set in your feeds. Even director Taika Waititi has been posting pictures from behind the scenes in the set. This is him letting his kids just check everything out. I will explain what they're actually filming in these scenes that he was posting later in the video, because they aren't directly related to the new version of Thor's hammer, the new version of Mjolnir that they have in the movie. Technically, it's actually the new old hammer, because Jane Foster Thor, female Thor, whatever you want to call her during the film, will wield a version of the hammer. So when they announced it at Comic-Con and Taika handed her the prop replica of Mjolnir and said that they were doing a story based on the mighty Thor from the comics and Gore the God Butcher storylines, everyone was just wondering how they would explain the other hammer, because the last we saw, Hela smashed Mjolnir during Thor Ragnarok, and the second version of Mjolnir that Thor wielded during Avengers Endgame, he actually stole that from the events of Thor the Dark World. It was a great scene, it was a funny moment, but after the battle was over, Captain America took that hammer back to Asgard during the events of Dark World when he took all the Infinity Stones back. So after Avengers Endgame, they don't have that second hammer anymore. I get so many questions about that when I talk about Thor Love and Thunder and the alternate version of the hammer. Like, don't they have a second hammer already? Didn't Thor have one? No, they took that one back. I guarantee you people are still going to be confused about that when the movie picks up. I think people just forgot about this Captain America scene with him taking the hammer back, because by this point in the film, even when they're rewatching it, they kind of checked out because you're still kind of thinking about Iron Man dying and all the other stuff that was going on, because there was so much stuff going on in that film. I've already done videos for the other first looks that we got at Thor, the Guardians of the Galaxy during the movie, and the new version of that fake play that they're doing with Matt Damon's character, the fake version of Loki, Luke Hemsworth, Chris Hemsworth's real-life brother playing the fake version of Thor, Sam Neill came back as Odin, and now they have Melissa McCarthy playing fake Hela, and they're parodying the events of Thor Ragnarok with her breaking the hammer. And of all the moments in the film, there's an important reason why they're parodying this particular scene that relates to the new version of Mjolnir that Jane Foster wields during the movie. I'll explain in a second. But I'll post links to those other videos for the other footage down in the description below. Recently though, there were other scenes they were filming near this area of New Asgard where this big stage is outside that explain where that new version of Thor's hammer comes from and clarifies how it's going to work during the movie. Because in the Mighty Thor comic book that they're partly using as inspiration for the story of the film, the whole reason why Jane Foster became Thor in the first place is because Thor Odin's son, this version of Thor, became unworthy and couldn't lift the hammer anymore. And the whole idea was there must be a Thor to protect Asgard. But after Avengers Endgame and at the beginning of Thor Love and Thunder, so it seems, main Thor is still worthy, so we can tell. He still has Stormbreaker, which is supposed to be even more powerful than Mjolnir. So they have to have some other way of explaining how Jane Foster gets that hammer. And it turns out the way that they went with seems like a big callback to the first Thor movie in the classic Thor comics. So if you look at this scene that they're filming here, you can see that the Asgardians have built out the rest of New Asgard with structures all over the place since the events of Endgame, just to make it look more like classic Asgard, instead of just a small fishing village on the bay here. It's been a little over 2 years when the movie picks up, I believe. Thor Love and Thunder takes place after the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, after the events of Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness. For the most part, with a few exceptions, the Marvel movies tend to move in a linear fashion in the timeline. But notice you can see here that they've also taken the time to turn this spot where Odin died on the cliffside here during Ragnarok into a special shrine, and right behind it, they've also erected a special monument for the broken pieces of Mjolnir. There's this little special pedestal here that holds the broken pieces, and it was built on the spot where Hela crushed the hammer. If you're a big Lord of the Rings fan, it's a little like the shrine that Elrond and the elves of Rivendell erected to the broken pieces of Aragorn's sword, Anduril, the Sword of the King. Side note too, if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, there's a massive Lord of the Rings TV show that Amazon is in the middle of filming right now. They spent $500 million on their season 1. I will be doing episode videos for that when it releases next year. Completely separate from Thor though, not related to Marvel stuff. And in this scene where they're filming with Natalie Portman's Jane Foster, you can see she's wearing just jeans, t-shirt, jacket, very casual clothing. but they have her floating in the air with her arms flapping around, and it seems like this is Jane Foster becoming female Thor for the first time, and she's just at this special shrine to the broken pieces of Mjolnir right next to the monument where Odin died. So just based on this evidence, it seems like the way they're explaining her becoming Thor and getting a version of the hammer is they're using the power of Odin's original enchantment on the hammer. Whosoever holds this hammer, if they be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. I guess they're saying that just because Hela broke the hammer physically, she didn't destroy Odin's enchantment on it, and his spell was just so powerful that literally, when the hammer deems her worthy and she just happens to touch one of the broken pieces of Mjolnir, the enchantment repairs the hammer, reforms it, but also grants her most of the same powers as Thor, including a set of armor. The armor is also another reference to that first Thor movie. Remember the end of the first movie when he becomes worthy again? When he calls the hammer and grabs it, his armor forms around him through a magical spell. I'm sure there's also a scientific way of explaining where the pieces of the armor come from. Like, the armor isn't inside the hammer, it's a powerful enchantment that's just doing all the heavy lifting, just to make as many hammer jokes as possible. They haven't revealed what her armor is going to look like or if she'll have the alternate blonde hair that female Thor had in the comics. I'm not expecting it just because we already know that it's Jane Foster, and in the original Mighty Thor story that part of this is based on, they did the whole blonde hair thing as a way to hide her secret identity from comic book readers till later in the story. There's no reason to hide her identity during the events of this film. But just in terms of her actual appearance, when she's female Thor, when she's in the armor, think about the way that Valkyrie looks in her white armor during Ragnarok or during Endgame. She'll be probably about as big as that. When you're talking about relative power levels, the funny thing about Asgardians, even people like Loki, who's obviously Frost Giant, is that even without ever having worked out a single day in their lives, never lifting weights, their genetics just make them way stronger, way more powerful than normal humans. That's how Loki is able to soak all that damage from the Hulk thrashing him. A normal person would pop like a balloon if the Hulk did that to them. It'd be like Homelander on The Boys, punching through people's faces, just making giant messes of gore. That being said, amongst Asgardians, you still have vastly different levels of power. Like, there are normal Asgardians who are still super strong and resilient compared to humans, but Thor, for example, is a lesser god, like a legit lesser god in a cosmic sense, so he's way more powerful than normal Asgardians. That's why even the fat version of Thor during the final battle in Avengers Endgame is still crazy powerful, dual-wielding against Thanos. He could still run as fast as Captain America without breaking a sweat, even before he lost all that weight. And just because Mjolnir deems Jane Foster worthy and reforms for her, that doesn't necessarily confirm anything about Thor's actual story during the film. But in the comics, he becomes unworthy, and that's the whole twist. It was actually Nick Fury's fault that he became unworthy too. And because we have Gore the God Butcher in the movie, the whole reason why Nick Fury made him unworthy or made him feel unworthy was that during this big fight that they were having in a previous comic book event, he whispers in Thor's ear and says, "Gore was right." And on the spot, Thor just drops the hammer, and it sat there until Jane Foster came along later during the Mighty Thor storyline and picked it up and became female Thor. What Nick Fury meant, though, when he said Gore was right, was the whole idea that during the Gore the God Butcher storyline, which obviously is informing another big part of the movie, was that the gods, people like Thor, don't actually care about their subjects. They don't care about helping people. Gore felt like the gods only cared about themselves, and thus they didn't deserve to exist. That's why he went on his campaign of trying to kill them all. Christian Bale, playing Gore the God Butcher during the movie, can't wait to see what he's actually going to look like. We've actually seen him on set getting ready to film his scenes. He did shave his head. I'm assuming some of his appearance will be a little bit motion capture, because even if Gore's face in the movie looks like Christian Bale's face, there's no way they could do all Gore's powers with the Necro Sword and the way his cloak works without using some motion capture. But the early theory now for all these different hammers is that what happens is Thor just happens to be away from Earth when Gore first arrives at New Asgard to kill all the gods that he can find. And because Asgard is without their protector, so to speak, that's why Odin's enchantment works for Jane Foster Thor. Because while she's nearby, she also happens to be touching Mjolnir just offhandedly and happens to be deemed worthy while Gore is in the process of attacking. So it's one of those situations where the hammer just uses this sort of magical algorithm and says, okay, you fulfill all the requirements, bam, you are here, you will protect Asgard. So post all your theories in the comments below. What do you think Thor is doing when Jane Foster is in the process of becoming a version of Thor? And remember, a while ago, Chris Hemsworth did confirm that he was going to continue being Thor in the MCU after the events of Thor: Love and Thunder, so it sounds like they're not going to kill him off or retire him or anything. But really what I'm hoping for, I really just want to see Thor get some scenes with a version of Silver Surfer and Galactus when they introduce new versions of those characters in the MCU. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll get some teasers or Easter eggs for them during Marvel's first new Fantastic Four movie. Just to explain the scenes that Taika was posting on his Instagram and his Twitter account, these are all behind the scenes of them filming really cosmic scenes. They're using the giant video wall technology that they used on The Mandalorian. Taika Waititi obviously directed on The Mandalorian. He also played IG-11. But as you can see, it looks kind of like they're standing on a moon, this rock face here, that's directly exposed to the stars. So they're using it for very cosmic scenes that's hard to do practically. But what's going to happen is we'll get a couple more Loki trailers in the next couple of weeks, so I'll do videos for all that stuff as we get ready for the Loki episodes. While you wait for everything, click here for my other Thor 4 Love and Thunder first look videos and teasers, and click here for my new Doctor Strange 2 Ghost Rider video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys tonight.